Good morning. Let's go ahead and see what's going on in court. Just saw the judge.
Well, I wish we had a bigger space, but we don't, that we can make use of. So I recognize this is not common, but it's the best we can do.
Oh, the sound's not great. Sorry. You're always lurking. But I know you're here. You're always here.
I swear in the interpreters, and then I'll go over some other things. Who we got? Two?
He's a mic, people.
Okay. All right. If you'll both stand and raise your right hand, you swear that you will truthfully and accurately translate English to Spanish and Spanish to English to the best of your ability, so help you God. Thank you. Are you all where you need to be in your equipment?
Hey, you.
Operating? All right, good, good. Very well. I will just leave it to you. If you notice something is malfunctioning or not happening, let me know. All right.
The interpreter is pretty cool. She talks into a thing like the court reporter thing, and he wears headphones. So it doesn't like interrupt. You're not hearing like
Call the case of State of
Spanish
Georgia
echo.
versus Jose
Oh, yay.
Ibarra.
A microphone. How
Superior
novel.
Court of Athens, Clark County, SU 24 CR 0323. Charged with 10 counts. 1 count of malice murder, 3 counts felony murder, 1 count kidnapping with bodily injury, 1 count aggravated assault with intent to rape, 1 count aggravated battery, 1 count obstruction or hindering a person making an emergency telephone call, 1 count tampering with evidence, 1 count peeping Tom. The defendant has entered a plea of not guilty. Is the state ready?
Flash internet's going to internet.
All right. Anything we need to take up preliminarily? I believe there was a motion yesterday. Is there an order with that, or I need to address that orally? If I missed something?
Just ignore them. That's what they want. They want to get a reaction out of you.
For the purposes of me starting, I do not anticipate any of those types of photos that would be subject of the order to appear until after lunch. So we will email Your Honor the proposed order and counsel our proposed order, and that could be something we can take up on a morning break.
That'd be fine.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Beck?
Yes, Your Honor, there is an outstanding motion to reconsider the motion to suppress. It is just based on one statement of fact that we believe is inaccurate as to how the defense obtained the records from the cell phone. If Your Honor wishes to wait until the for the trial,
why?
The testimony will clear it up. But to the extent that that one fact in any way affected Your Honor's ruling, would just point out that is still outstanding.
All right. We'll take that up, and you're welcome to remind me
Yes,
about that.
And Your Honor, it was brought to my attention by co-counsel that apparently during our live stream of the proceedings on Tuesday, the cameras and live stream that went out continued to record after Your Honor
David.
and the attorney were discussing matters. So I guess I would just ask that Your Honor instruct the media to stop live streaming when Your Honor is not on the bench.
Okay. And that is the instruction when I'm not on the bench or otherwise. call recess, but may be sitting here, that's a signal to stop streaming. Thank you.
If I just may, I don't know what's going on with this camera here. It is very close to us. It is very intrusive to our ability to communicate. And I would caution the court that that's there. And we would ask that the media be instructed not to report any interaction between any of Mr. Ibarra's attorneys and himself to protect attorney-client privilege. If that's what's going on here, I think that that's problematic.
Oh, politics are nasty. Which is why I should say right now, if there's any political arguing in the chat, I'm just going to time you out. I don't think any of my regulars are going to be arguing politics, but if anybody that's not a regular comes in and doesn't know me and the way I run my channel,
It's live stream, but there's a delay.
they
in the live
might.
stream.
So I'm just going
They
to
were
time out people if they
instructed
come
to
in
not publish
and start
interactions
talking
between
about immigration, because I
the
don't.
defendant and the attorneys. And also, I understand that the microphones will not be recording. It will not be picking up conversations that between you all as well, as long as it's done in, tones that could normally be picked up.
So I'm doing this because it was a nursing student. Like when I first heard about this, I didn't know she was a nursing student. I had no plan to even follow this case. And then I heard she was a nursing student, and I was like, oh no, one of my own have been killed. And I was like, oh, I'm following this now. So it doesn't matter whether he's here illegally or not. He was arrested 3 times and let go, and then had the opportunity
There was a discussion about that, and it was
to murder someone because he should have still been in jail.
Rather than moving around with, it would be less obtrusive than moving around cameras. So that's what we have.
I don't understand why
You want
courtrooms
to be heard further?
are so weird about cameras. It's a public trial. Anybody can walk in off the street and go watch it.
I'm sure counsel for the defense will notify the court if they feel that camera is intrusive.
They don't have to worry about accidentally filming a jury right now for this trial. So
State ready with the opening statement.
I'm not afraid. I will argue it. Not literally argue, but debate it.
May it please the court, counsel.
If somebody wants to have a
On February
civil
22nd,
debate and not a shouting argument, calling names match about it, but
put on a
I don't think
black
that's
hat,
appropriate for my channel.
a hoodie style jacket, and some black kitchen style disposable gloves. And he
I know, and I don't know how to boost the
for
volume.
females on the
Sorry.
University of Georgia's campus. And in his hunt, he encountered
Sorry.
22-year-old Laken Riley on her morning jog. And when Laken Riley would be his rape victim, he bashed his skull in with a rock repeatedly. That is what this case is all about. The evidence will show that Laken fought. She fought for her life. She fought for her dignity. And in that fight, she caused this defendant to leave forensic evidence behind. She also marked her killer for the entire world to see. The forensic evidence that he left behind in this fight is his DNA, and only his DNA and Laken's underneath Laken's right fingernails. He also left behind in a struggle with her over her phone, because the court will hear that she called 911. He left behind his left thumbprint on her iPhone, which was found not far from her body at the crime scene. And it is that forensic evidence alone that would give you enough evidence to find him guilty as charged on the counts in this indictment. But the evidence in this case will come in basically three forms. There'll be forensic evidence, there will be digital evidence, and there will be video evidence. And all three forms of those evidence will point to one person, Jose Ibarra, as the killer of Laken Riley. And this is not working. We'll start with a timeline, and the timeline is established by a lot of the digital evidence that you're going to hear about. And for Laken, that timeline begins basically at 9:03 in the morning. At 9:03 on Thursday, February 22nd, Laken Riley did something that she does all the time, and she went out for a morning jog. She lives not far from the crime scene, and Your Honor is going to see several maps in this case, and you will see that where Laken Riley lived, where the defendant lived, where our other victim, who you're going to hear from in this trial, Tasia Swee, lived, Building S at the University of Housing, at University of Georgia Student Housing, and where items of evidence were dumped in this case, and where Laken was murdered. It's all clustered together. And it's all clustered together within about a half-mile radius of one another. And you'll see several maps throughout this case. But she left her house at 9:03 in the morning. We know that for several reasons. She was captured on her Ring doorbell, and you'll see that video through our first witness. And she also was captured on a trail cam that becomes very important in this case. And at about 9:05 a.m., she's captured running from her house down Rogers Road, eventually towards the crime scene where she encounters this defendant. She is running, as you will see, with a few things that are important. 2 AirPods, and they are noise-canceling AirPods. And her phone, her iPhone, is in her left hand. She's wearing typical running clothes, how she runs, what she runs with, because these things are important to judge what eventually happened between her and this defendant on the trail. She wears typically very tight running clothes because that's what's comfortable when you run, so it doesn't get it doesn't come off or get loose when you're running. And so this particular day, she's wearing running tights, white Hoka shoes, and 3 layers of clothing on her top. She's wearing a running bra, a shirt, and a tight black Louis running jacket when she leaves her house. At 9:11 a.m. exactly, Laken is a few minutes into her run, and we have some digital data, which we'll talk to you about, which is a Garmin watch that Laken had gotten for Christmas that she's wearing on her run. And this watch captured a lot of important data that you're going to hear about. But she is on her run, and her phone, she activates the emergency function of her iPhone. And you're going to hear about that through testimony of the witnesses who examined her phone. She activates the emergency function of her iPhone, and she attempts to call 911, and she, in fact, does call 911. Her call is connected to ACC PD. At 9:12, you'll hear that the call was hung up, and I'm going to play the call for you. At 9:12, the call was hung up by the caller, not the 911 center. The 911 center did not hang up on Laken Riley. The phone hung up. And at 9:12, they tried to call her back, and there was no answer. This is an enhanced version of the 911 call, and there will be several stipulations between the parties in this case. We will execute a waiver of them as they come in. One of the stipulations was that this 911 call was sent to the FBI in Quantico, where they attempted to enhance the call. And this is a 1 minute and 8 second call, and this is the enhanced version of that call. And I'd like the court, when listening to the call, right about 55 seconds into the call, you're going to hear a voice.
Hello, this is Clark County 911. Hello, Clark County 911. Can anyone hear me? Clark County 911.
Was that his voice?
Yo Tango. There is a long break in what happens next.
No tango means I don't have.
Laken's mom, who Laken usually talks to on her run, who started calling Laken at around 9:06 that morning. And you'll just see the call logs from that and the evidence of that through Laken's phone. And when she could not reach Laken, she began calling Laken's 3 roommates. And you'll meet all 3 of them, Lily Steiner, Sophia Magana, and Connolly Huff. All 3 of them are University of Georgia students at the time. They were all seniors. And Laken herself was at UGA, but had recently transferred to the University of Augusta Athens campus because she wanted to be a nurse. But the 4 of them still live together. And the roommates are all, I would say, technologically savvy and security savvy. And they all 4 had iPhones. And there's a function with an iPhone called Find My iPhone, which you can share your location with other people. And the 4 ladies in that house, roommates, shared their digital location with one another 24/7. And so when Allison Phillips, Laken's mom, began calling and looking for Laken, she notified all the roommates. And then the roommates started checking the ring door camera, checking for Laken, texting Laken, calling Laken, and no response. I will say that this particular day, February 22nd, 2024, happened to be the day where there was a widespread phone outage by AT&T. And so some of the girls did have AT&T as their service provider. Laken did not. She's Verizon. And so the girls were having phone problems due to that widespread outage. And so you'll hear about how that kind of interfered with their ability to really find where she was. But eventually, they could not find her. They could not find her for hours. And even though Laken would go out on long runs, she always had her phone with her, so they became concerned. So at around 11:30 on the day of her murder, 2 roommates, Sophia and Lily, went and walked the trails back behind the intramural fields at the University of Georgia where Laken used to run, but they also had her digital profile. And her digital profile put her in the middle of the Oconee Forest, and they had noticed that she had not moved. She had not moved for hours. And so they walked to where they could last see her digital profile, and the 2 roommates found one of Laken's AirPods. They photographed it, they collected it, they went back to their house where they could have Wi-Fi to connect because they had no phone service in the forest and the outage was on. And at 12:05 p.m., they called the University of Georgia police and reported that Laken Riley was missing. So it isn't until the police respond immediately and they take that digital profile, and you'll meet Sergeant Maxwell. He is the officer that found Laken's body. And it takes him, even with her digital profile, this is a very forested area. And she obviously wasn't on the running trail. She was off the running trail. And it took him about 25 minutes, even with her digital profile, for him to locate her. And he did locate her. And you're going to see the body cam of him locating her. And what he found when he found her is that she was hidden kind of almost under a tree and covered up with a bunch of leaves. The first thing he noticed was that her breasts were completely exposed. All 3 layers of her top clothing were pulled up above and around her neck. He also noticed that her running tights, which she typically wears above her navel, were pulled down and her underwear was protruding from her tights. He also noticed severe injuries to the left side of her head. He began immediately trying to save her life, but he could tell that she was dead. She was cold. But he began CPR, and you will see the efforts of him and several other University of Georgia police officers where they try to save her. They have to move her out of this area so that they can get her flat on the ground. They give her chest compressions. They give her CPR. They put those pads on her chest to try to start her heart. Eventually, the fire department and EMS comes and they do the same. They work her for several minutes, but she is dead. She is dead. And there was nothing they could do to stop it or help her. You'll see the crime scene measurements. The crime scene in this case was worked by the GBI in conjunction with UGA-PD. You will hear in this case from GBI, UGA-PD, FBI, and ACC-PD. The 4 of them really in conjunction worked this case. And the crime scene, importantly, when they get there, there's really very few items there. But item number 1, where you see on the trail, is the other AirPod that Laken was wearing at the time that she was running. And then they saw a disturbed area of leaves to a point where they found 2 rocks and a tree, both of whom have, or all 3 of which have Laken's blood on them. And then Laken's body was a few feet away from that, where you see the green there. And then her phone was not found near her body. It was found where you see item number 8, which is the other tree that you see there. But her person was taken 64 feet off that trail. So from where AirPod is, item number 1, to where you see items 2, 3, and 4 is 65 feet. So in legal terms, he asphyxiated her 64 feet off of that trail so that he could attempt to victimize her.
Wow.
This is the crime scene, and you'll see how wooded it is and why it took Sergeant Maxwell so long to find her, even though he did have her digital profile. And in here, this photo is actually the phone. And so it took them a really long time to find the phone. They were calling the phone, they were pinging the phone. Her phone was on silent, so they couldn't hear it. I mean, it wasn't until it got dark that they could find her phone, but they kept looking for her phone because they knew the phone was there. And they found it. And when they found it, this is what Daniela Stewart of the GBI saw on her iPhone, exactly where your thumb would be if you go to hang up a call on the iPhone. At the bottom of the iPhone, she found this latent print in blood. They processed the phone immediately, and that latent print was sent to ACC-PD. And we'll talk about that a little later. And here's some of the Garmin data. And there are some things that we will never know about exactly what happened between Jose Ibarra and Laken Riley on that trail, but we know enough. And what we know is that at 9:10 a.m. from her Garmin that she was wearing, as she is trucking along and she is clipping 7-minute miles, she's running, doing her thing, listening to music, something happens. He does something to her to make her stop dead in her tracks. She initiates the SOS function on her phone and calls 911, and she immediately stops. And after that, you'll see some of this Garmin data, her movement, because it went to the FBI CAS team. They're the ones that analyze it, and you'll hear about it. She's on this trail with this defendant for about 4 minutes, and then you see 4 minutes later, her Garmin move 65 feet into the woods, and there's some additional movement of her along that time, and her heart rate is still going until 9:28 a.m. Her encounter with him was long. Her fight with him was fierce, and that is what the Garmin data shows. And once her heart stops at 9:28 a.m., there's no more movement from her garment. So what happens next? Well, UGA PD leave, and they really got nothing other than a peeping Tom incident that had occurred on campus at 7:57 a.m. And I'm going to talk to you about that one last. So what they do is it is a combination of good police work and luck, pure luck. But they start dumpster diving. ACCPD is dumpster diving, UGAPD is dumpster diving, GBI is dumpster diving, FBI is dumpster diving. Everybody is just looking into every dumpster in the Athens area. And at a dumpster, at an apartment complex where he lived, a police officer named Zach Davis of ACCPD finds this hoodie jacket. And when he looks in and sees it, it's in a recycling bin and it's standing out because it's right on top. And he noticed it had long, dark hair on it, wrapped around one of the buttons, and he could see blood. And he thought that was suspicious. So he calls UGA PD. They respond at 9 o'clock on the day of Laken's murder. They collect the jacket found in the dumpster and they send it immediately to the GBI crime lab indicator for testing. But while they're there, they notice, they look around and see that one of the residents in this apartment and B32 had what's called a Eufy camera, which is like a ring camera that works a little different, had a camera aimed at that dumpster. And so they asked the resident that night, hey, can we come in? Can we see your camera? He agreed to let them see it. And this is what they saw. At 9:44 in the morning, about 15 minutes after Laken Riley's heart stopped, this is what they see. So they saw an individual who they did not know who it was at the time, dump the jacket in the dumpster and go to those bushes there and dump something there. So they go to the bushes, and this video has been enhanced, and I'm sure you're going to hear a lot of testimony about this video, enhanced the best they could by GBI Cyber. And I know the court sat through some motions to suppress where this black Adidas hat, there was a lot of discussion about, and you're going to hear more about all of those things. But this is an image that they locked in on and began to circulate around the neighborhood, or as the cops call a bolo. Be on the lookout for this individual. They didn't know who he was, and they circulated that. But they did go also that night, still the night of February 22nd, to the bushes, and they found 3 black disposable.
He wore
also sent
gloves?
immediately to the crime lab. And one of the interesting things about the black disposable gloves when they got to the crime lab,
I
and
was-
they were analyzed, this is a picture
his
taken
thumbprint.
after the crime lab, is that on the thumb of the gloves, there was a hole. There's also other holes in the gloves, and they found them. But on the thumb area of one of the gloves that the crime lab examined, they found a hole. And they also found blood, and that blood was later to be determined to be Laken Riley's blood on those gloves. So I've already told you about the geographic locations. They're all clustered. You can see in this map, the crime scene is at the top in the middle, called body crime scene. The dumpster where the items were found is marked. Building S is right by the bus stop, and then Laken Riley lived further up, Millage Avenue, towards the top of this photo. But the distance between the Building S, which will become important, and Laken Riley's body is about 300 yards. The distance between the dumpster and Laken Riley's body is about 500 yards. And the distance between the dumpster and the bus stop and where the defendant lived, because he lived in that apartment complex, is about 150 yards. everything is close together. So what happened next in the investigation is that the very next morning on Friday, February 23rd at 8:32 a.m. as ACCPD again is just looking out for anything. They had the bolo at that point. They encounter a person named Diego Ibarra. And Diego Ibarra is wearing a black Adidas hat that has some interest to them, which is they believe to be the identical hat that they had seen in the video the night before. And I will tell you this, on that hat that Diego Ibarra was wearing the next day is Laken Riley's blood. So their theory that that was in fact the same hat was absolutely correct. So they encounter Diego Ibarra. He gives them a fake green card. They know it's fake because it has 2 different dates of birth on it. And so they ask him to go back to his residence and they begin talking to him. UGAPD arrives and they begin to take over the scene. From the information that they had gotten from Diego Ibarra, they knew that hat was a hat seen in the video because of the proximity of the crime. And at some point, Diego began telling them he's got brothers in the house sleeping, and there were many communication difficulties at first because the first responding officers did not speak Spanish. No one in this apartment, D126, could speak English. So at some point, UGA brought 2 of their Spanish-speaking officers on scene, and the communication became a little easier. Officer Bridges, Officer Sand, both of whom are native speakers of Spanish, arrived and began taking over in the communications. When they get there, they are attempting to secure the residence for a warrant. And before they could do a security sweep to secure the residence for a warrant, Argenis Ibarra, who's in the middle in this slide, comes out with a garbage bag in his hand. He eventually gives officers consent to enter the residence. And when Sergeant Epps enters the residence, he sees Jose Ibarra asleep in the bed. And that is how he's been identified in this case. You will see there are 5 residents that lived in apartment D126. Jose Antonio Ibarra, this defendant, also goes by the name of Victor, which will be important because a lot of the communications within his phone and some of the witnesses just call him Victor. So Jose Ibarra is Victor. It is in fact the same person. Diego Ibarra is Jose's older brother, goes by the name of El Gocho, is a nickname that many people, including this defendant, call him El Gocho. Argenis goes by Manny, and Rosbelli Flores Bello goes by La Gorda, and then Juan Carlos Diaz Hernandez, they call Carlito. And I suspect the state will tell you right now, you're going to hear from Rosbelli in that residence. You will also hear that all the residents, Diego, Argenis, and Rosbelli, at least those 3, are currently in federal custody, some immigration issues, but we are going to produce Rosbelli to testify to the court about the things that she saw and observed that day. And it is Rosbelli who identifies Jose Ibarra from the dumpster video. The officers, when they saw Jose Ibarra that day, saw that he had many injuries to him. Scratches on his arm, scratches on his wrist, scratches on the back of his neck, scratches on his hands. And they photographed those injuries to him. And then they began to do an additional canvas of this entire apartment complex. There are multiple buildings in this apartment complex, A, B, C, D, and E. Multiple teams of agents began going around looking for cameras, talking to residents. What do they know? What do they not know? And one of the things that they found is that the Ibarras lived at D126. Right next to them is D125, and right next to D125 is D124. 124 had a ring camera. 125 had a still camera. And they went and collected videos from those 2 apartments. And importantly, on the day that Laken Riley was murdered, at 10:21 a.m., Jose Ibarra is captured on D124, coming out of his apartment with a bag, and now his clothes have changed. He's wearing different clothes than he was wearing about 40 minutes ago. And he has a bag in his hand. and he's walking towards a dumpster, another dumpster in their apartment complex. And that dumpster, by the way, had been emptied the day of the murder. So when the officers went to check that dumpster had nothing in it for them. But in the next door neighbors, still camera shot at 10:24 a.m., 3 minutes later, Jose Ibarra is walking back towards his apartment, empty-handed, nothing in his hand. So they searched the residence that day, and they found a few things of significance. Number one, they found 3 more black disposable kitchen gloves, which were sent to trace evidence for plastics and polymer examination, and they concluded that they had originated from the same source as the gloves that were recovered in the bushes. They recovered 2 of the defendant's Samsung cell phones, which you will hear some evidence out of, but they also found no bloody clothing, no bloody anything, and the shirt and the satchel that you see the defendant wearing in the video, the dumpster video, were never found. They're not in that residence. So what other forensic evidence? The parties will stipulate to the prior Daubert hearing that this court has heard, so we will not be recalling the fingerprint evidence, but we will have a stipulation with the transcript and all of the exhibits that thumbprint, latent print that was on the phone was sent to ACCPD that night. And eventually, the digital image of that thumbprint on Laken Riley's phone was compared to Diego Ibarra, Argenis Ibarra, Rosvelli, and Juan Carlos, and they were all excluded. They didn't leave that thumbprint behind. It was matched to this defendant, Jose Ibarra. It is Jose Ibarra's left thumb on Laken Riley's phone. And the analyst or the expert who did that analysis testified at the Daubert hearing. He showed the court 15 points of comparison that he found, and his results were peer reviewed by another examiner. They were peer reviewed blind, and she agreed with him. There's also DNA in this case, and you're going to hear about 3 different types of DNA: traditional, YSTR, and true allele. All true allele is probabilistic genotyping, but it is a computer software program that deconvolutes or separates complex mixtures of DNA. That's what true allele does. But before you can go to true allele, you have to start with traditional DNA. So all of the items of evidence that you're going to hear DNA results from started with the traditional DNA. They were swabbed, they were amplified, they were quantified, all the things that you do with regular DNA. But we do have some regular DNA results in this case. First and foremost, the jacket. The jacket found in the dumpster has blood on it, and in the blood for traditional DNA is Laken Riley's DNA and this defendant's DNA, and only the 2 of them. Jose Ibarra and Laken Riley's blood are on the jacket that he dumped in the dumpster. The rocks and the trees from the crime scene, they were also processed for DNA, for latent prints, and for everything we got. But on the rocks in the tree, just Laken's DNA, Laken's blood on the rocks in the tree. They attempted at first, which is protocol, to do what's called YSTR DNA testing on Laken's fingernails. So both her left and her right hands were swabbed by the medical examiner in this case, and they were both sent to DNA for analysis. YSTR is a better fit for trying to separate male and females because only males have Y chromosomes. And so they attempted YSTR first, and they were successful. The problem with YSTR, and the officers did gather the DNA of Jose Ibarra, Diego Ibarra, and Argenis Ibarra. They are brothers, and blood brothers share the same paternal line, and they share the same YSTR profile, unless there's a genetic mutation. And what the lab found when they tested the fingernails of Laken Riley is that, first of all, the left hand, there's nothing. No DNA of any other person other than Laken. But on her right hand, there was male DNA. And for the YSTR testing that they tried first, Jose Ibarra could not be excluded as the donor of that YSTR profile, and neither could Argenis, because again, they're blood brothers, they share the same YSTR profile. But Diego could be excluded, and that's because Diego carries a genetic mutation that the lab was able to see, and he was able to be excluded as the donor of YSTR profile underneath Laken's nails. But after the YSTR was done, it was then sent to True Allele along with a lot of other items. And when True Allele tested, and the data was sent into the True Allele program, it didn't test it, but when the data was sent into the True Allele program, True Allele excluded Arhenis as the donor. True Allele excluded Diego, who had already been excluded by STR anyway, but True Allele matched Jose Ibarra to the DNA underneath Laken's right fingernails, to this likelihood ratio, which I have before the court here. 10 billion times more probable than a coincidental match. I will tell you the gloves that were tested, that's all just Laken's blood. The black gloves that were in the bushes. There's a straw that was tested. That is the defendant's blood. I want to talk to you about that a little later. And then the hat, the black Adidas hat, is also Laken's blood. And then the jacket also did contact swabs. So in addition to the blood on the jacket, they did contact swabs that were sent to True Allele. And again, it's the defendant and Laken on the jacket. But importantly on this dark blue jacket, also Laken's hairs that were sent, that were wrapped around the button, were sent to trace evidence. They are consistent with Laken Riley's hair. And of course, it's consistent with her long dark hair and all the microscopic analysis on it. Her DNA is on that jacket, so there's really no need to do DNA on the hair because her DNA is already on the jacket in form of blood, but they look microscopically at her hair and it's consistent with her hair. But the important thing they found about several of the hairs, I believe over 15 of them, is that they were forcibly removed from her head. They did do a sexual assault kit on Laken, and several things were tested. But the bottom line is her entire sexual assault kit was negative for male DNA. Her clothing was looked at with AP, P30, you'll hear about that. There was no semen present. However, her underwear was sent to the trace evidence section as well, where they concluded that her underwear had been forcibly torn. So the medical examiner, Laken was sent to GBI headquarters in Atlanta or Decatur, where Dr. DeMarco conducted an autopsy on her the very next day after her murder. What the medical examiner found is that Laken had depressed skull fracture on the left side of her head, and she had 8 other lacerations on the left side of her head, which literally look like holes. She had a small subarachnoid hemorrhage on the right side of her head, and she had multiple abrasions to her face, her neck, and her torso. She also had what's called petechia in both eyes, which is consistent with some form of asphyxia. And asphyxia can come in many forms. It can be a drowning, but most importantly in this case, it can be a form of strangulation. It can be manual, it can be ligature, it can be all kinds of things. But what the medical examiner said in this case is that Laken Riley died as a result of the effects of blunt force trauma to the head and asphyxia NOS, not otherwise specified. She can't really say if it was from chest compressions, maybe manual strangulation, but there was something going on in this struggle where this defendant deprived her brain of oxygen for long periods of time. And that was her cause and manner of death. But I want to talk to you about something that happened before, and it is count 10, and it's a peeping Tom. Shortly before 7 a.m., Jose Ibarra is seen on a trail cam, and this is a version of the trail cam, or this is the angle you'll see. And you'll see an individual, and the state will be the first to tell you this video quality is not fantastic, but there's more than just this video. You'll see an individual wearing a dark hoodie, eventually a dark hat, black gloves, and holding a styrofoam cup. And UGA attempted to enhance this video. GBI cited it's bad. They've studied this video 1,000 times. You'll hear the things that they saw in looking at these videos. The male is seen on the trail cam exiting the defendant's apartment complex. That's how he gets onto the trail. It's further beyond outside the scope of this exact clip. But he gets on through a path from the defendant's apartment complex to this trail that leads onto campus. And this is Rogers Road. This is UGA Village housing for graduate students. And this is a bus stop that's used by students to take the bus to get to a class. At 7:01 a.m., this individual is seen at this door that you're going to see in the bottom on the middle of your screen.
Bye, Flash. Have a good day.
And in that apartment, building S, lives a graduate student. She's an Indian national. Her name is Tejaswi Sarathi, and she is here at the University of Georgia studying. This defendant is seen trying to open her door at 7 o'clock in the morning.
They let this man go, y'all. He was in jail. And they let him
And
go.
there's about an hour's worth of video that was watched by UGA PD that between 7:01 a.m. and 7:57 a.m. on the 22nd day of February 2024, about 70 minutes before Laken Riley is murdered, this defendant
No, he didn't know her.
apartment 114 6 times. Twice they can see on video that he attempts to open her door. And at one point you'll see in the video where he ducks down.
And this
And
was
that
a
is
different
because at some
person.
point, the student inside heard him at her door, and she approaches him at the door and says, "Excuse me." And she will testify to this court that when she said that, she's looking at her peephole, he ducks down. And you can actually see that on the video. And just here's a portion of her 911 call where she calls at 7:57.
I was in the shower and then I heard some noise and I came to check that someone was, I saw through the peephole. Someone was trying to open the door and then I said, "Excuse me," and then they just ran away and then now they kept trying to look through my window. Okay, and what's going on?
So she says she was in the shower and she heard her door jiggling. And she said that somebody was at her door. She says, "Excuse me," he ducks down and he tries to look through her back window and does look through her back window. This is her back window. This is the back side of building S, and this is exactly how it was that morning. This is body cam footage of Officer Bridges, who's one of the officers that responded. Her blinds are open wide. They're open, not only open, but they're pulled up more than halfway. The right side is her living room. The left side window is her bedroom, wide open. Her blinds were that morning. She said that's how she kept it because it was kind of a dark place, and it was more comfortable for her to have some light in. And that's how her windows were. And she said when she turned around, she could see the person who she can't identify. We'll be the first to tell you she can't identify him. She didn't get a good look at his face. He had that hat over his face. He had a hood on. She describes the clothing: dark hat, dark jacket. Didn't get a look at his face because when she looked through the peephole, he ducked down, but she could see him peeping into her window, looking into her window.
Shouldn't that be more than just a peeping Tom charge? He tried to get in our house, in our apartment.
That analyzes digital evidence. And they were brought in this case to look at data from the defendant's phone, the victim's phone, cell phone records, all of these things. And some of the data that they got from the defendant's cell Samsung, one of them, which is 1B7, which you'll hear a lot from, is called Rubin data. And Rubin data is something that's collected by Samsung, and the FBI CAS team analyzed Rubin data, looked at the Rubin data in this case, and at the time of the peeping at Tejaswi's apartment, the defendant's 1B7 phone is right over her house. And these are the digital points by the FBI. But also, there is a white styrofoam cup. In the video, you can see black gloves and the white styrofoam cup of the peeping. This cup was found by UGA PD as they were coming onto the trail. to come to Laken Riley's scene. They thought it was unusual because there's no trash out there usually, and it's just sitting there. They collected the cup, and you can see in this next image, if you see where the retaining pond is in the middle of the screen, the cup is near there. So in between Building S, where Tasha Sweet lived, and in between where Laken Riley's body was found, was this white cup. That white cup was collected and sent to the crime lab at the GBI, and it is the defendant's DNA on the straw of that white cup in between the two crime scenes. So also, out of his phone and out of his social media, the defendant, when he woke up that morning, kind of did us a huge favor and started taking pictures of himself. And here are the pictures that he took of himself and posted on Snap, and also a tweet found on his phone. And one was taken at 4:30 a.m. The second one was taken at 5:37 a.m. And you see in that one that he is wearing the black Adidas cap with the stickers on it, with the same jacket, with the hoodie. Also, he took pictures of himself wearing the same shirt that you see in the video of B32 and the bag that was never found that you see on the side of him in some of the videos taken on the day of Laken's. And also you can see from, again, D124 and D125, the day before the murder, he is wearing them the evening before the murder. So this is the 21st at 9 p.m. He's wearing the same clothes. So in the end, Your Honor, that is a summary of the evidence of the case. Summary of the evidence that the state has in this case. You will hear forensic evidence. You will hear digital evidence. You will see videos, all pointing to the same.
They always do. They're stupid.
And he also beat Tasia apartment. At the close of all the evidence, we are going to ask you to find him guilty on every count of this indictment, because the state will be able to prove every bit of it. We ask that with your verdict, the close of the evidence, that you bring justice to Laken, Tasia Sweet, and this community. Thank you.
That was a good opening. Like, she hit every point. I don't understand it. I don't get it.
Judge,
Venezuela doesn't want him back.
evidence in this case
I
is
know why.
graphic and it's disturbing. What happened to Laken Riley is graphic and disturbing, and it is a tragedy. The loss of any life that young and apparently full of promise is a tragedy. And I'm sorry that the family is having to go through this and be here for the presentation of this evidence. People have used this case for their own personal gain, financial gain, political gain.
Of course, he's going to take.
And while this process has its place for testing evidence, it's very poorly suited to healing hearts and minds.
Are you going to defend
So
your
it's the
claim
evidence that
or
we
what?
have to talk about. And the evidence in this case is very good that Laken Riley was murdered. The evidence that Jose Ibarra killed Laken Riley is circumstantial. The evidence that anyone had any intent or certainly committed any sexual assault is speculation. Most importantly, in this case, you'll hear no evidence that a sexual assault was committed. You'll hear nothing from the GBI, the FBI, UGAPD, ACCPD, that after looking at all of the evidence in this case, scouring for anything that could help prove this allegation in the state's indictment, that they found any biological evidence that would suggest that, any physical evidence that would suggest that. There's no injuries that are consistent.
He's not
with
being
the sexual
charged
assault.
with that.
And in this case, it's an effort to explain a tragedy, but it's not based on evidence.
It's not being charged
The
with that,
evidence that
say.
Jose Ibarra killed anyone is circumstantial.
His DNA is under her
The
fingernails.
state's presentation in their opening had a lot of detail about information, again, that showed that this event happened. But upon a closer look at the evidence that links Mr. Ibarra to that event, it is lacking. You'll hear that his phone was in the area, and you'll hear that the cast team that ran the locations of this phone.
Yeah, she was
And
fighting for her life.
there is good evidence that the phone itself was in the area. What you'll also hear, though, is that when they looked into this phone, when they did a close examination of who was using this phone, it wasn't just Jose Ibarra. It was other people in that apartment who were using this phone. And that comes through an investigation into the accounts that were used through this phone, and also from people who met other people associated with this phone who had used the phone to message people. And so while the phone was there, that's true. It doesn't show that Mr. Ibarra was there. And you'll hear that Mr. Ibarra's fingerprint was on Laken Riley's phone. But you'll also hear that he was wearing gloves, supposedly. And that this hole that was supposedly in the gloves that they found would not have left that mark. You'll hear that someone in that video, in the so-called dumpster video, was wearing an Adidas hat. That's true. When they find that hat, and specifically the hat that was tested in this case, it was worn by Diego Ibarra, not Jose Ibarra, Diego Ibarra. And you'll also hear, and the state will ask you to consider different types of forensic evidence and to suspend your understanding of how that evidence is evaluated. Because while they will say that Mr. Ibarra's DNA was present at the scene, what they'll tell you is that without this software that we can't test, this proprietary software used by the GBI, without that, their expert wouldn't have been able to say whose DNA it was. She wouldn't have been qualified to testify about whose DNA that is. So they have to use a machine. And they're going to ask you to trust that machine.
They always use a machine.
Where the human being isn't good enough. But with this fingerprint, they're going to ask you to trust a person because a machine isn't good enough. When they run those fingerprints through the database of fingerprints where they know Mr. Ibarra's fingerprint is, it doesn't come up. And so while a machine is good enough in one situation to try to convict Mr. Ibarra, it's not good enough in another. And it's this kind of gymnastics that it will take to tell the story with this circumstantial evidence. We waived a jury trial in this case with the hope and trust that despite the nature of this evidence, that you could come to a verdict that was not just a way of
I will be right back.
easing this family's suffering, but it was based on an impartial and honest assessment of the evidence in this case. If that happens and the presumption of innocence is respected, there should not be enough evidence to convince you beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Ibarra is guilty of the crimes charged.
You may call your first witness.
Lily Steiner.
I missed the end. That was it. Are you kidding me? I wasn't even gone for 30 seconds.
Elmo. Thank you.
So I have like 2 pages of notes on the prosecution opening, and for the defense, I've just got, it wasn't him.
Would you raise your right hand, please, ma'am? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you will give today in the matter of the state of Georgia versus Jose Ibarra will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, self you got? Okay, please take a seat. Spell your first and last name for matter of please.
My name is Lily.
And please, talk into the mic. It's just because the jury's not there, we still need to hear.
I'm 22 years old.
And where do you live? Not your exact address, but what part of town?
Currently, I live in Canton, Georgia.
And what are you doing right now?
I'm working as a medical assistant.
Did you go to the University of Georgia?
I did.
And did you graduate?
I did.
When did you graduate?
Graduated in May 2024.
While you were at the University of Georgia, where did you live and who did you live with?
My address was 1686 Village Avenue Extension, Athens, Georgia 30605. And I had 3 roommates, Connolly Huth, Sophia Magana, and Laken Riley.
How long did the 4 of y'all live in that house together?
Connolly lived with me for 3 years, and then Sophia and Laken moved in. And we lived in that house for 2 years. I lived with Laken at the time of her death for a little over a year and a half.
How would you describe your relationship with Laken?
I know I can't hear either.
We were roommates. But
Oh, there we go.
Term roommates is an overgeneralization of our relationship. We our house was like a little family, and we called each other our family. We did everything together. We had family dinners, family TV nights and movie nights. Laken brought a sense of joy to all of our lives that has been missing ever since. So
Let me, may I approach the witness, Your Honor? Henry, what's been marked for identification purposes in states exhibit 1. Do you recognize the person in states 1?
I do.
Who is it?
Laken Riley.
And does it fairly and accurately depict Laken as she appeared in life?
Yes.
Statement moved to admit states exhibit 1, request permission to publish. No objection.
It's admitted, and you may.
So how old was Laken?
She was 22.
Where did she go to school?
At the time, she was going to Augusta College of Nursing, which had an Athens location.
What was she studying there?
Nursing.
Prior to attending Augusta College, had she attended the UGA?
Yes.
How long was she at UGA?
She was at UGA for 3 years before that.
Did you and Laken and your other roommates share each other's location?
We did.
Tell the court how you all did that.
So there's an app called Find My iPhone, Find My Friends, and you can request to have other people's locations, share your location with other people. So we did that with a lot of our friends.
Tell the court, where were you on February 22nd?
I went a few different places. That morning I was at our house, and then I ran a few errands, ended up back at our house, ran another errand, went back to our house.
Did you see Laken that morning?
I did not.
What time did you leave your house?
Around 9:30, I believe.
Okay. And when you left your house to go out, was Laken there or not there?
She was not there.
What did I do? What did I do? What did I do?
Went downstairs and I didn't see her sitting at her usual spot.
Sorry about that.
At the kitchen table. So I checked her location to see where she was, and I saw that she was on a run at on a trail that she typically ran.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor? I'm handing you what's been marked for identification purposes of states exhibit 2. Do you recognize states 2?
I do.
What is states 2?
This is a screenshot from the app Find My Friends of Laken's location.
And is that how it appeared when you checked it on the morning of February 22nd, 2024?
Yes.
Did you admit states exhibit 2? No objection.
Two's admitted.
And may I publish? Publishing states exhibit 2. Could you tell the court what we're looking at here? Explain this to us. What is this?
Sure. So the LR is the initials of Laken Riley. You can see that at the bottom. And underneath her name is a rough just address, I guess, of where she was at. And then underneath that, it says now. This is the exact time of when her location, the way that it updated, it would say now. So that was her location at that exact time.
And is that what you saw when you first checked it?
Yes.
So where is that location? And is your house in here as well? And other people, we see other initials, CH, MC, whatever.
Yes. So CH is Connolly Huth. That is my roommate. And so her location right there is at our house. And then MC, that is one of my other friends who lived further down the street.
And LR was like in here.
Yes.
And where is that location that you saw her? Are you familiar with that location?
Roughly, yes.
Yeah. And when you checked it, what about the first time you checked it? Approximately what time?
It was about 9:30 from what I remember.
So did you again check it again?
Yes. So when I got home from my first set of errands, and I saw that Laken still wasn't home, That wasn't unusual because it was only about an hour after I checked her first location. So I thought maybe she was just still on a run. Checked it a second time around 10:45, I believe. That's a rough estimate. And I saw that it was in the same location. That did raise some concerns. So I texted Laken and just was checking in on her, and then addressing Connolly in a group message. I said, she's been in the woods a while.
Did you have a cell phone service that day?
So that day there was an AT&T service outage. So I was not, I did not have service if I was not connected to the Wi-Fi at my house. So if I left the house, I was not able to communicate or receive any communication.
So where were you home then? At approximately what time did you get home when you realized that she had not left the woods?
That was about 10:45, and then I ended up leaving the house again because I still wasn't. I just thought she was still on a run, and there was maybe she was on the phone or something.
And then what time did you return again?
I would say roughly 11:30. I'm a little less familiar with what exact time that was.
When you got home at 11:30, was there anyone else home?
Yes, so I immediately pulled in and I saw Sophia standing outside with her dog. And I got out of the car and she just immediately said, can we go look for Laken?
And did y'all do so?
We did.
And what did y'all do?
So Sophia was a little bit more familiar with the trail. We walked down using her knowledge of the path that Laken would usually take on a run. And then when we got a little bit closer, we were using the Find My Friends app to kind of go directly to where her location was until we were standing kind of right around it.
When you were at the location where you felt that Laken was showing on her phone, did you see Laken?
We did not.
Did you see anything that you think may have belonged to Laken?
So when we were walking, Sophia noticed a lone AirPod that was sitting on the trail, kind of right around where her location was, and she picked it up, kind of assuming that it was Laken's.
All right, now I'll ask Sophia about that. At some point, did you all return home?
We did.
Okay, when you got home, what did you do?
It wasn't shortly after that we got home that I called 911, or not 911, excuse me, the UGA Police Department.
May I push the return? Many what's been marked for identification purposes as States Exhibit 3. Do you recognize States 3?
I do.
What is it?
It is the phone call that I made to the police.
And is it a fair and accurate recording of your 911 call that you made on February 22nd, 2024 at approximately 12:05 p.m.?
It is.
When you reported Laken missing?
It is.
State move to admit States Exhibit 3, request permission to publish. Okay.
They said that AT&T had an outage, so they had to be where they had Wi-Fi.
Your Honor, do we have to toggle back over so that you could hear it? I don't know the system like that.
Yes,
we do.
Laptop.
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure. We'll see.
Yes, sir. Because I know it's playing, but I can't hear it.
Is that on HDMI? I don't know.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
12:05:55 seconds, February 22, 2024.
Mercy Police, this is Jed.
Hi, we're calling because our roommate went out for a run at 9. He usually runs like through Lake Herrick behind that housing, and we haven't heard from her. And we all just got like service back, so we don't think it has anything to do with the outage. We went to go look to where her last location was, and all we found was an AirPod.
Okay. Hold on one second for me.
Okay.
You said last seen near the, like, IM fields?
It's like behind the IM field, so we live near like grad housing, like building 8.
since you just got service back?
Yes, we've been here. Her family doesn't have AT&T, so the one with the power outage, so they've had service the whole time, and her calls have been ringing through. We're just not getting answers.
Okay, so where are you at right now?
We are
I'm gonna stop this for 1 minute in. Is somebody else also talking?
Yes, so I was
Tell the
having
court.
trouble explaining kind of where Laken's location was, just because I wasn't super familiar with that area. So Sophia Madonna, my roommate, took my phone.
Okay, are y'all together when you're making this call?
Yes.
at our house on Millage Avenue Extension.
Okay, are you able to come? Hold on, let's see. Can you come, like, do you know where the intramural field parking deck is?
Yeah, we can go there.
Okay, can you go there and meet the officers? What's your name?
My name's Sophia Madonna.
And what's your friend's name?
The one, her name's Laken Riley.
Second, February 22, 2024. What is your phone number?
The one that I'm calling you from is 678-756-0513.
What's your friend's phone number?
Okay, I'm gonna ask you, do you remember Laken's phone number off the top of your head?
Kind of, but yeah.
Are you about to say it to 911?
Yes.
And is the number that you gave 911, was that Laken's cell phone number?
Yes.
That we're about to hear?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Let me look. 779.
867-5309.
Do you know if she has class or anything at this point?
She has a class at 1, so that's, we take her nursing. She adapts to nursing school and she does not miss class.
12:08:43, second, February 22, 2024. How did you get her last known location? Was it from her phone?
Yes, it was updating, so that's why we're a little confused. Yeah, but we didn't see her phone us anywhere when we went. She hasn't moved for almost 3.5 hours now.
When you call her, does it go straight to voicemail or does it just keep ringing?
It keeps ringing. I'm on my way to the IMCS now.
Okay, that's fine. How long ago was it that you last called her?
I need like 5 minutes.
12:09:56, second, February 22, 2024. Okay, so what kind of vehicle are you going to be in so the officers know to look for?
Black sheep.
How did she get there? Did she run from your house there or did she take a vehicle there?
Yeah, she runs the trail. Her car's still at our house.
Okay, we've got officers on the way, all right?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Police, this is good.
Hi, my name's
So after you made that 911 call, what did you do?
I drove to the the intramural fields parking deck on UGA's campus to meet with the police.
And where did Sophia go?
So Connolly was in class, Sophia went to go pick up Connolly from class so that they could meet us at the Iron Field with the police.
And did the three of y'all meet there?
Yes.
And were the police officers there?
Yes.
At some point, did a police officer ask you if you could show him the location of Laken as it depicted on your phone?
Yes.
And did you do so?
Yes.
And the thing that you showed him, as it states Exhibit 2, what we've already looked at?
Yes.
How long did y'all have to stay there that day at the IM Field?
It felt like forever. I'm not sure of the exact amount of time, but maybe around 5 hours.
At some point, did the police ask you to show them the ring footage from your home where Laken had left out in the morning?
Yes, there were a few times that the police asked for different things, but I did show somebody at some point, yes.
They had her witness from. Yes. Henny was marked for identification purposes, the state's Exhibit 4. Do you recognize it?
I do.
And did you put your initials and date that thumb drive?
I did.
What is state's Exhibit 4?
This is the ring footage from our front door of Laken leaving that morning.
And is it a fair and accurate recording of that ring footage?
Yes.
They would move to make stage 4, request permission to publish. No objection. I'm going to pause it quickly. Do you see, first of all, on stage 4 that is now being published, the date and the time of this footage?
Yes.
Could you tell the court where is it and what is it?
It's in the bottom right corner.
And what's the date and what's the time?
February 22nd, 2024, 9:03 Eastern.
And who is that person that we see in State's Exhibit 4?
That is Laken.
Wow, I can hardly see that.
After 9:03 a.m. on the 22nd day of February, did you ever hear from Laken again?
I did not.
Did you ever receive any text messages from her?
Not after 9:03. No.
Any calls from her?
No.
I'll pass the witness room.
I don't have any questions.
You should be excused.
Yes, sir. And she would like to remain.
You call your next witness. Let me just call your, go ahead, who is that?
Sophia Magana.
Sophia Magana. My plan is to take comfort breaks, 1 in the morning, 1 or so in the afternoon. I'll look, sort of in between, so just to let you all know that. If something needs to happen outside of that, let me know.
Yes, sir.
Maybe different aspects of this room.
That's fine, that will be the plan.
Hand, please, ma'am. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you will give in the matter of the city of Georgia versus Jose Ibarra will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
The lawyer swearing them in?
And, I know you are soft-spoken. Can you please move that microphone right close to your mouth
I've
so that
never
everyone can
seen
hear
that
you
before.
and that counsel for the defendant can hear you? It's really important that you be heard, okay? And Madam Court Reporter is very close to you as well. She has to be able to hear everything you're saying because she's taking it down. All right. Spell your first and last name, please.
SOFIAMAGANA.
How old are you?
I'm okay.
Okay, all right. What do you do for a living?
I'm a teacher.
And what do you teach?
I teach special education, high school, and language arts.
How long have you been a teacher?
4 months.
Where did you go to college?
I went to the University of Georgia.
And did you graduate?
Yes, ma'am. In May.
Of this year?
Yes.
Where were you living at the time of your graduation?
I was living in a house off of Village Avenue Extension.
Who were you living with?
Lily, Connolly, and Laken.
How long did y'all live together?
I lived with them for 2 years.
I want to direct your attention to February 22nd, 2024. What were you doing that day?
I was taking my GACE exam for my certification.
How do you spell that?
GACE.
What is a GACE exam?
It's a test you're required to take to get certified as a teacher in the state of Georgia.
Were you allowed to have your phone with you when you took the test?
No, ma'am. I had to put it in a locker.
What time did you leave your house that morning to take the test?
Around 8:20.
When you left your house that morning, did you see any of your other roommates?
I saw Laken and Connolly before I left.
Where did you see them?
Connolly was on our couch and Laken was sitting at the table, and I spoke to them for a little bit.
When you left out, where did you go for the test? Was it on campus or elsewhere?
It was on campus. It was in Clark Hall.
How long were you there taking your test?
I got there around like 8:45, and I left maybe around 11:15.
When you completed your test, what happened?
I got my stuff. I got back in my car, and I drove back to my house because I didn't have service. So
When you say service, you didn't have what service?
phone service.
And why didn't you have phone service?
Because AT&T had the outage that morning, and my provider is AT&T.
So what happened when you were eventually able to get service back on?
I got back home, and when I got service, I had some text from Connolly, my roommate, asking me to check around the house to see if I saw Laken anywhere. And then once I got into the house, I got a phone call from Connolly and Lauren.
Who's Lauren?
Lauren's Laken's younger sister.
After you got the call from Connolly and from Lauren, did you look for Laken?
Yes, I looked for her around the house, outside, in her car, kind of everywhere, every room, every corner, a few times, and I didn't see her.
What did you do after that?
I grabbed my dog and I decided to check her location on Find My iPhone, and then got my dog on his leash and started heading out to go towards her location.
Did you go alone, or did someone else besides your dog go with you?
Champ came with me, and then my roommate Lily.
Champ is your dog?
Yes, ma'am.
So where did y'all walk, and about how long did it take you to get there?
We walked down the trail that was like off the road, so it took us about no more than 15 minutes, let's say maybe 10, to get to where we thought.
May I approach the witness showing you? State's Exhibit 5, State's Exhibit 6, and State's Exhibit 7. Starting first with State's Exhibit 5, do you recognize that overall photo?
Yes, ma'am.
What is it?
It's a map of the trail.
The state would move to amend State's Exhibit 5.
Submitted.
State's Exhibit 6 and 7, do you look at both of those?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you recognize both of those?
Yes, ma'am. The
What are they?
pictures I took when I found the time.
And they very accurately depict what you saw on February 22nd of 2020.
Yes, ma'am.
The state would move to amend States 6 and 7, and what's permission? No objection.
6 and 7 are admitted in the so.
And maybe toggle back over, Your Honor.
Yes.
Starting first with State's Exhibit 5, and I have a pointer that you could use that has a laser. Connor, can you see the screen that she uses as a pointer?
I can, I've got, you got the other corner?
And if you could show His Honor, what direction did you and Champ and Lily go, and where were you when you found an AirPod?
So we started here, and then right about here
At the end of the
at Millage, where it
Millage
turned
Avenue?
into a sidewalk.
Okay.
We got to the sidewalk, and then there's the train tracks like right here, and there's a little like trail that's just been walked over a lot. So we went down the trail, and then crossed over the train tracks, and then walked this. all
Around the
way.
retaining pond?
Yes,
On
ma'am,
the side
around
of
the retaining pond.
it? All right.
I'll stand up.
You may stand with the court's permission,
Yes.
but keep your voice up so Madam Court Reporter can hear you.
Okay, so we walked here, and then this is where like the main trail starts, so we got over here, there's like a turn, so we took the curve and we stopped right about there.
Okay, so when you say there, is there a trail there?
Yes, ma'am, it's all a trail,
And
paved
that's
trail.
on the top right part of State's Exhibit 5. For the record, I'm just making a record for the court. Okay. Where within the trail, was it on the side of the trail, the middle of the trail, where within the trail did you find the AirPod? Sorry.
The AirPod was towards the left-hand side, but still on the trail.
And showing you, first of all, how did you find the AirPod?
Champ was sniffing a lot, and so I looked down because he was really fixated over a specific area where I kind of had stopped, and he was pulling, and then when I looked over, I noticed there was like a white AirPod, so.
State's Exhibit 7, what are we looking at there? And can you see the AirPod?
Yes,
Can you point to it for the court?
it's right here.
The bottom of this photo.
Yes, ma'am. That's where I found the AirPod, or where it was when we got it.
And you said this is State's Exhibit 6. First of all, do we see Champ in State's Exhibit 6?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh.
Right here.
All right, in the corner,
Peppers.
left corner of the photograph. If you could use State's Exhibit 6, show us within the trail where you found the AirPod.
The AirPod was about right here.
Okay, where your shadow is?
Yes.
Or a shadow of a person?
Yeah, my shadow.
Okay.
Shadow.
Out there, did you see Laken?
No.
When you found the AirPod, did you look at it?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Did you think it was Laken's?
I did.
And why did you think it was Laken's AirPod?
She always had a little bit more wax on her AirPods,
Ew.
so I noticed the earwax.
And was it
Gross.
also, did she have, what color were her AirPods?
They were white.
So did you collect it?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And did you eventually give it to the police?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm handing you what's been marked for identification purposes, State's Exhibit 8. And I'm just gonna ask you to look inside this bag for me, and I'm gonna ask you a series of questions.
Okay.
Look inside that bag. Do you recognize what is inside State's Exhibit 8?
Yes, ma'am.
What is it?
It's her AirPod.
Is that the one that you picked up on the 22nd day of February, 2024 that you gave to the University Police Department?
Yes, ma'am.
And is it in the same or substantially same condition?
Yes.
State would move to admit State's Exhibit 8, request permission to publish.
Eight submitted and may publish. Is it one? Just one?
Just
Yes.
one. After you found the AirPod, Ms. McGovern, what did you do?
I took the pictures first just to remember. And at that point, I picked it up and I turned around and I told her we were gonna walk back to call the police because we both didn't have service.
And did y'all do that?
Yes, ma'am, we
And
did.
then where did you go after the police?
I went to go pick up my roommate Connolly from her class, and then I met Lily with Connolly at the IM field deck.
And we know we're at the IM field deck, did the police respond?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you tell them the information that you had found?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Magana, did you receive any text messages, any calls, or any communication with Laken Riley after 9:03 a.m. on the 22nd day of February 2021?
No, ma'am. My last text from her was at 9:02.
May I have a moment with counsel?
Yes.
Yes, sir, and she would also like to.
Ten-minute recess.
Yeah, I forgot about the outage too, because I was going to say, that is a good question. Why did they wait? And then I remembered the outage. Yeah, they just took a picture of the AirPod and then didn't look anymore and then just went back. I think I would have kept looking. But they also didn't have cell service. So maybe they thought it was more important that they go back home where they could call the police. I don't know, man. That's a tough call. But it was too late anyway. Man, this is just so sad. There was some stuff in opening. Oh, my bad. Not 2 pages, 1 page. 1.5. I didn't know about the thumbprint on her phone. And I didn't know about all the video evidence of him. Like, I knew they had the one video of him throwing away clothes in the dumpster. The first video they showed, but the second one at night of him throwing away the clothes, I didn't know they had that one. And then I also didn't know that her tops were pulled up and her bottoms were pulled down. I knew that one of his charges is, oh, it's in my other notebook. What was it? Aggravated battery with attempt to rape, I think. But it says attempt. So I knew it was just an attempt. So his lawyer got up there and kind of acted like, oh, there was no evidence of any SA. Well, yeah, he's not being charged for that because there's no evidence of it because he didn't get a chance to do it. But if she hadn't fought him so hard, he might have. And her hair was wrapped around the button on the jacket that he threw away. I didn't know that either. Or hoodie or whatever it was. I didn't know about the gloves that they found in the bushes. Speaking of holes in gloves, so many times I have seen nurses, I never did this. They put on gloves and then they pull the fingertip off of one of the gloves to feel for a vein. Why? That's so stupid. The gloves are there to protect, they're to protect the patient and to protect you. Because if you poke yourself with a needle while you're wearing gloves, yes, the needle will go through, but the glove, it's like a squeegee effect. Like it'll push the blood that's on the needle away from your finger. You know what I mean? Like, so then you have less blood to get infected with from that needle. So always wear gloves. But if you're gonna mess with blood or needles or anything like that, I'm not talking about this kind of. Don't do what he did. Not that kind of gloves. I am a little curious though, how much of a thumbprint was left and how big was the hole? Because if they got like a really good, perfect thumbprint, it was more than just a hole in the glove. It was like no thumb on the glove. If it was a good thumbprint, you know what I mean? If it was just like, then it could have been just a hole. But if it was like a good solid thumbprint, and it would have to be like no glove on the thumb part at all. So I heard some evidence that I didn't know about. And I'm with Judy about that peeping in the window thing. That is terrifying. He was trying to get into her apartment. Like he was doing. Oh, they did say it was a partial thumbprint. I missed that. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Every time I've seen a nurse do that, I'm like, of course I don't say anything, but every nurse does things their own way. But it's like, that's stupid. Why are you doing that? But I mean, that's more than just a peeping Tom. He was trying to get into her apartment. There should be another charge for that. There should be another charge. I mean, not that it's going to make a difference because this guy's going to be in prison for the rest of his life. So he comes over here, wants asylum with his girlfriend. They got married in New York, I think. I know they got married, I just don't know where. So that their asylum case would be easier. They wouldn't have two separate cases, they just have the one, I guess. And then he rides on a moped with her 5-year-old son. Neither one of them are wearing helmets. And all it said was a motor vehicle violation. I'm assuming since he just came to this country. He didn't have a license. He came over in 2022 and then went, like, I think they said like 4 months later, went to New York. And then after he was arrested for that and let go, then he went to Georgia, where he shoplifted in Walmart with his brother and was released. And then he did this. That's the part that makes me, I mean, the whole thing makes me angry, but that's the part that irritates me. They kept arresting him and letting him go. Pull the finger off of the glove? I have never done that. I've felt the vein before I put the gloves on, but you can still feel it after the gloves are on. I feel first without the glove just to make sure, and then put the gloves on and then feel. But I had a nurse tell me once that you don't have to be able, no, that wasn't feel, that was see. You don't have to see the vein. You just have to feel the vein. Yeah. And I was like, no, I have to see it. And he said, no, you don't. You only have to feel it. No, I have to see it. Like, no, you don't. IVs were not my strong suit. Now, baby IVs, because you can see, you can put a light under a baby's hand or arm, and their veins light up like a Christmas tree, and you can see. I could do baby veins all day. But yeah, the fact that they keep catching them, well, I don't care whether they're here illegally or were born here. Why do they keep catching them and then letting them go? And then they do something horrible like this. Like Ed Kemper, he was born here. Oh, like I said, it's not an immigration problem, it's a criminal problem. He killed his grandparents. They locked him up in juvie. He became an adult. They let him go. He became a serial killer. And I know shoplifting is not the same as murder, but still. Well, when I had cancer, they couldn't find a vein. Like the chemo had just eaten my veins up. I was in the ER one night. I had the flu and pneumonia, and they stuck me like 12 times. Because, yeah, I do that too. But my veins are recovering now, so they're much better. But yeah, I still apologize. Mine roll. They don't blow anymore. They blew. That's what happened when I had chemo. My veins would blow. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. My veins are just now starting to bounce back to where I don't have to apologize to the phlebotomist anymore. Just sit down and they do it. But there was a time there where it was like, okay, are they going to get it or not? And I have a port, but it doesn't, you can see it or not, but it doesn't draw blood anymore because the cannula inside of it is up against the wall of the port. It's like if a straw is like up against the glass, you know, when you go to suck back, nothing comes out. It's like that. It's like up against the edge of the thing.
Okay.
And so, again, we have no issue with the video being shown. It's just when he gets to the point where you see her physical body, we're gonna ask that will clearly be allowed to be seen in the courtroom, but not on a camera live stream now.
Okay. And I'm, Ms.
We
Beck.
don't have any objection, we join the statement.
Okay. So, order granting promotion. I will just, so it's not the next witness, it's the next?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll make an announcement, make it clear to them. Can we call that witness as well? They have? I'm told
She's wearing a
they're
black.
already aware of the motion and understand the terms of the
She's
motion.
wearing a black jacket with a navy blue skirt.
So it will not be live streamed.
Maybe needless, I think I would also request no photos. of
They
the
know
video.
how to do it. Why is the court always so worried about the
That is code
cameraman?
too as well, so there will, I don't see the still camera. Oh, there you go.
They know
No
how to
still
do it.
camera shots of anything depicting autopsy or crime scene photos involving the victim, that the victim is present. Okay? Thank you. And your next witness is? Sure.
I would not want to have to be tackled by that dude. Hope everybody behaves in court today. That's a big dude.
Can you raise your right hand, please, sir? Do you swear affirm the testimony you will give today in the matter of the state of Georgia versus Jose Ibarra will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Please take a seat. Spell your first and last name, Madam Court Reporter.
My name is Kevin McGreevy. First name is spelled Kevin. Last name is McGreevy. As in Victor.
What do you do for a living?
I'm the training coordinator at the Athens Clark County 911 Center.
As the training coordinator, first of all, how long have you worked there?
31 years.
31 years?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you familiar with the way that the Athens Clark County 911 Center receives, records, and maintains 911 calls?
I am.
As the coordinator also, are those 911 calls kept in the ordinary course of business?
They're stored on a server which is secured in a key card access only area.
I want to ask you about two particular 911 calls. But before I do that, if a person is calling 911 from the University of Georgia campus, could you tell the court, how does that happen? Because does it come into you? Does it go to UGA? If a person were to call 911 from the campus?
Okay, University of Georgia has its own 911 center. It's a PSAT, Public Safety Answering Point. So any 911 call on campus that is placed from a landline, it goes to UGA's 911 center. If there is a 911 call from somebody on campus with a cell phone, that's going to come to our center. And once we determine the issue is occurring on campus, we will transfer the call to UGA.
Right, may I approach the witness room?
Yes.
I'm handing you several documents in OneDrive. I'm just gonna stay with you until we go through them, if you don't mind. State's Exhibit 9, you recognize that?
I do.
What is it?
It is a business record certification that I signed in reference to 911 call recorded.
And is it a 911 call recording that came into ACCPD on the 22nd day of February 2024 at 9:11 a.m.?
Yes.
Say to me, State's Exhibit 9. Can you tell us for the record, what phone number, when a person calls 911, you all capture the phone number?
Yes, the phone number.
And what was the phone number that made that 911 call at 911?
77077.
State's Exhibit 10, what is that?
This is a copy of the phone call.
The one made at 9/11?
Yes,
And you listened to that prior to today, and is it a fair and accurate recording of that 911 call?
yes, ma'am.
Say move to State's Exhibit 10.
10 submitted.
State's Exhibit 11,
Okay, this is business record certification. This is a printout of a CAD call. CAD being an acronym, computer aided dispatch, is the computer system that we use in the 911 center.
and what is the date and time of the 911 call that CAD is referring to?
February 22nd, 2024 at 7:57 a.m.
And did that call actually first come into ACCPD?
It was a cell phone call. It was answered by our center. We transferred it to UGAPD.
So it did start with you first.
Yes.
State's Exhibit 12, you recognize, oh, State would move to the State's Exhibit 11.
Objection to 11. This is 757 call, right? No.
State's Exhibit 12,
11.
thank you.
And 12 is a copy of the 911 call audio report.
From 7:57 a.m.
Yes, ma'am.
And is it a fair and accurate recording of that 911 call?
It is.
Your Honor, the State would move to admit State's Exhibit 12.
Objection to 12. Certification, I think 12 is reporting itself. Okay.
Admitted? Okay. And then there are two additional exhibits that are stipulated by the parties. So this would be our first stipulation. It's marked State's Exhibit 13. It is signed by myself and counsel for the defendant. And it is a stipulation that reads as follows. The 911 call made by Laken Riley's telephone on the 22nd day of February 2024 at 9:11 a.m. was sent to the FBI laboratory in Quantico for enhancement. The audio call is consistent with a 911 recording, and analyst Alicia Hiller used a multimedia processing procedure in an effort to enhance the call. Ms. Hiller noted there is a constant system noise present in the background throughout the recording. Occasional impulsive and rustling noises are heard in the background, as well as intermittent sounds consistent with birds chirping, or bird in parentheses. There are a few areas that may contain voice or voices at approximately 22 seconds, 48 seconds, and 55 seconds. The potential areas of speech are unclear. A musical sound of some sort is also heard in the background at 25 seconds, mostly overlapping with the dispatcher's voice. So that is a stipulation by the parties, which is State's 13. And then finally, State's Exhibit 14 is a copy of the enhanced 911 call. And so for the purposes of this witness, we have agreed, so the court won't have to hear this 911 call twice for the record, we are going to play the enhanced version by the FBI for the record at this time, which will be State's Exhibit 14, which I would need to admit at this time and request permission to publish.
Do y'all want to be heard on 13 or 14? Yes, sir. Okay.
Yes, sir. So now, for the record, the state will publish State's Exhibit 14, which is the enhanced 911 call made at 9:11 a.m.
Clark County 911. Hello, this is Clark County 911. Hello, Clark County 911. Can anyone hear me? For County 911.
Mr. McCreevy, I want to ask you about this 911 call. You told us what time it came in, and we hear an enhanced version of the call. Did 911 hang up on the caller, or did the caller hang up on 911?
The call was ended by the caller.
Call the caller back.
Yes,
And what happened to that call?
no answer.
I want to publish just the first part of State's Exhibit 12, which is the 911 call at 7:57 a.m. that you all then transferred to UGA, okay? And so with court's permission, publishing parts of Stage 12. The remainder for the record, Your Honor, of Stage 12 will be published through the witness, Tasia Sweet, Sarah Watt.
For County 911. Hello, I think someone's trying to break into my apartment. Okay, what's your address? Street and Rogers Road, building S114. All right, you're on UGA campus, hold on. Yeah, I'll switch you directly over. University 911, what location of your emergency? Clark County, Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, so is that the transfer that we just heard at 30 seconds or 31 seconds in the State's Exhibit 12?
Yes,
That's ACCPD transferring to UGA?
yes, ma'am.
For the record, I am putting back with Madam Porter, State's Exhibit 11, 12, and 14. May I have one more, counsel?
Yeah, or the earbud could have fallen out whenever he was struggling to get her to not make the 911 call.
Yes, Mr. McGreevy, just very briefly, I understand that your job requires you to maintain the records and control of the 911 call center, right?
Partially.
Why are you asking?
But just to be clear, you weren't working the phones that morning, February 22nd.
That's right.
You weren't hearing these calls when they came in at the time.
That is correct.
Okay. And then you all were asked to submit that the 911 call to the FBI for possible enhancement.
We were not asked to submit it to the FBI. We were requested to provide it to prosecutor.
Okay. But you all don't have that capability.
We do not do that. We don't do enhancements.
And then and any analysis of the phone from which the 911 call originated at 9:11 that morning, that would be done somewhere else. Y'all don't do that.
Has nothing to do with this.
That's all. Thank you.
No, sir. May you be excused?
Any objection to excusing McGreevy? You're excused. You may call your next witness,
Call Sergeant Maxwell.
and I'll remind media of the instructions for this witness regarding displays.
We have to look at the ceiling the whole time? That's not what they said.
Did you raise your right hand, please, sir? Do Do you swear or affirm the testimony you will give in the matter of the state of Georgia versus Jose Ibarra will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, self of God?
Yes.
Please take a seat, spell your first and last name for Madam Court Reporter.
My name is Kenneth Maxwell. First name is Kenneth. Last name Maxwell.
Where are you employed?
Hold on a
The
minute.
University of Georgia Police Department,
How long have you worked there?
about 9.5 years.
What are your duties and responsibilities?
Right now I'm patrol sergeant, so my job is to oversee a group of anywhere from 5 to 15 officers with daily tasks, answering calls for service, things like that, paperwork, administrative side as well.
If you could do me a favor and just adjust your microphone just a little bit. I'm having a tiny bit problem hearing you. I want to make sure they can hear you at this table to my left. There we go. Thank you. Thank you. Now, much better. Yes. Are you a post-certified officer?
I am.
Were you working on February 22nd of 2024?
Yes.
Did you all receive a certain call for a missing person named Laken Riley?
Yes.
Please tell the court the date and approximate time of the call and what you did and once you heard the call.
All right. So I believe the call came out on February 22nd at about 12:06 in the afternoon. It went out to another officer, Officer SPO Speller. He's one of the individuals that I oversee day-to-day operations for. When I heard the call come out, missing persons, or I guess people who are not like returning phone calls and things, aren't entirely uncommon. But anytime they come in, and as a supervisor, it kind of perks our ears up. So I started following the call and figure out what was going on, and dispatched myself towards that call at the same time to just see what resources may be needed to help begin whatever was going to come from that.
Did you meet with the 911 callers?
Yes.
Where did you meet them and when?
I met them at the entrance to the intramural fields deck, and that would be approximately 17 hours when they were speaking with SPO Speller.
And did they provide you with any data that you were able to use in attempt to locate Laken Riley?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
They showed me a screenshot, or I guess it was just where they were tracking her phone on some app. I'm not entirely sure which app it was. So I asked them to screenshot that and send it to my email, which I then sent out to other officers who were working so that we could kind of have an idea of where we might begin the search.
Tell us a little bit about that area, the intramural fields and the trails behind it. Are you familiar with them working for the police department?
Yes, very much so.
Tell us about it.
Front part of it's basically just a bunch of open sports fields. It is open for different collegiate type intramural activities. There's a big parking deck in the middle, which is where we met with the caller. And then towards the back, you get to the tennis courts and Redcoat practice marching band. And then on the back side of that is a large wooded area that's maintained by the university as well.
And that large wooded area, is that large wooded area located in Athens, Clark County, Georgia?
Yes, it is.
So what did you do once you obtained the location data?
Once I had the screenshot, I got back in my patrol vehicle and I drove to the back of the intramural fields where the trails begin. Based on where the screenshot was showing the phone was pinging, I kind of had a rough idea of how I was going to get there. At the same time, another officer arrived on scene and I directed them to go from the opposite side of the trail that I was going to enter in from.
And how did you have an idea of where the screenshot was coming from?
One, I'm relatively familiar with the trails. When I was on bike unit, we used to ride back there every so often, but I also use things like Google Maps as well to kind of see the actual layouts of the individual trails.
May I approach the witness room? Andy, what's already been admitted into evidence is State's Exhibit 5. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
What is it?
So this is the large retention pond that's towards the backside of where one of the trails are that back up to the backside of the Rogers Road University Village housing.
And using State's Exhibit 5, did you show the court in which way you entered the intramural fields and the trails?
Roughly, so the direction.
Yeah, do it that way because we've already talked. Show the court.
Yes. Roughly, I would have entered from this upper area side of the trail.
Lift it up. So
sorry. There's a bridge that connects over Lake Herrick, and I would have entered in from this side, and then Corporal Bridges came down this trail here, which hooked up from the actual roadway on the backside. So I had him coming from this side, I was coming from the other side, so that we could be in the middle.
Once you entered the fields, how long did you have to search the fields?
I think I searched for approximately 21-ish minutes.
And what were you looking for?
Pretty much anything that would give us an idea of, one, if she was indeed missing, or sometimes individuals may just get hurt. I think while I was also en route, I had asked to check, dispatch to check hospitals and things like that, because sometimes people get hurt out there. So pretty much any signs that she may have been out there or anybody who was out there just kind of acting weird. I think I also had them screenshot a picture maybe from social media to send to my email, so I had a rough idea of what she looked like. Because there's also times where we just have people who just were like, oh, I just come out here and unplug myself and I don't want to talk to anybody. So at that point, we still didn't really know what we were dealing with.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor? Penny was been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 15. Do you recognize State's 15?
Yes.
What is it?
I believe this should be some of my Axon footage from the day.
When you were searching for Laken Riley, were you wearing your department issued body cam, Axon body cam?
Yes, I was.
And did it record your actions that day?
It did. I turned my camera on as I entered the bridge to go over into the trails.
And the State's Exhibit 15 contain a fair and accurate recording of your body cam footage on the 22nd day of February 2024.
Yes.
The state would move to admit State's Exhibit 15 and request permission to publish. And Your Honor, as of what we did for the hearings that we had on this case, State's Exhibit 15 contains about 2 hours worth of body cam video, which the state does not intend on playing all 2 hours, but the other side is welcome to play whatever parts they want to play of the body cam video. And again, when we are referring to State's Exhibit 15 or any Axon body cam, we're going to be using the UTC timestamp in the top right corner of the screen for records purposes, so that they will know what we're talking about. Because there are 2 different timestamps on these videos, and we want to use the Axon timestamp. So for the record, Sergeant Maxwell, I am publishing State's 15. If you could tell us, yes, sir.
So I suspect what we're about to see is the victim's body there. I'm going to offer for anyone that's here to step out if you want to do that. I'll pause and allow you to do that.
May I have one moment?
Maybe more difficult.
Your Honor, thank you for that opportunity. A few people have left, but the others are insisting upon staying, and I have cautioned them to refrain from any statements about it. One more moment. If you could, Sergeant Maxwell, using the top right hand of State's Exhibit 15, tell the court our date and time here. I'm going to make you do the UTC conversion.
So it looks like at the top right, it's going to be February 22nd and then 1721, which would translate to, let's see, sorry, I'm on midnight, so my brain kind of acts weird, but about 5:21 according to that.
Okay, so that's UTC, so back it up 5 hours, 12:21 p.m. I'll help you out since you were on midnights. Okay, so 12:21 p.m. is when you start hitting the trails. And what is it that we see right in front of you? First of all, do you have your cell phone?
Yes, so I was pulling up the screenshot of the location as well as Google Maps. And then this is the bridge that I took to cross over to Lake Herrick to actually start the trails on the other side.
We can see the wooded area as the video is playing, but just tell us about the woods back there in general.
So in general, they're pretty well traveled trails. There's some very kind of more clearly marked ones that are wider that are about the size that vehicles could easily drive on them. But then there's also some connecting trails that, bicyclists or pedestrians mostly would use.
Now, we just heard audio for the first time at 17:22. Why did the audio just now come on? on?
So we have a 30-second buffer to when we activate the camera. So it captures 30 seconds prior to activating the camera, but it's only the video, it's not the audio.
So what I'm gonna do is fast forward a little bit, and again, anyone can play whatever parts they want to of this. And I'm gonna go to 17:28, which is 5:28 PM for the record on State's Exhibit 15, and we are gonna start to play it from there. But tell us now where you are in the intramural fields, or that area.
Yeah, so it looks like it's going to be back further on one of the larger trails that circles from the back. On the picture from earlier, it would have been the main trail that circled from the Redcoat Practice Band directly back to Lake Herrick Drive.
Can you see that trail in State's Exhibit 5?
I believe so. Let's see.
Can you show the board on State's Exhibit 5 where you are now?
Yes, so it should be right around here near the bend of this trail.
All right. So you're looking at your phone again?
Yes. Trail. If y'all can stop calling for now.
Who were you talking to at 12:29?
I was speaking to my dispatch. When I first stepped into the wood line, I asked them to begin calling her cell phone so I could hear some kind of an audio alert to where her phone may be. I didn't hear anything, so I told them to go ahead and turn it off to try to preserve battery.
I want to stop right here at 12:29. Can you see the running trail from where you're at?
But yes.
Go back to them so we can get oriented. Show us where it is on the inside.
If y'all can stop calling.
Okay, do you see it?
Yeah, so it's going to be on my right-hand side. I'm kind of walking parallel to it in the wood line right now.
Can you just point to it on the screen?
Yes.
Okay. At the top right-hand corner, almost where the timestamp is.
Correct. For now.
All right, Stringer.
Two. I'm currently in 8.5 is where the phone last pinged.
So approximately how long did it take you to find her?
From the original call, it would be about 21 minutes. From this area, once I was on the field, looks like it would have been closer to about 7 or 8 minutes.
How would you describe that vegetation?
It's not really super thick necessarily, but there are a lot of vines and thorn bushes and things like that that kind of interweave. Not super difficult to walk through, but it was catching my uniform every now and then.
And how would you describe the lighting out there?
The lighting was pretty decent. It was the sun was up. I'm not sure if it was completely cloudless, but not overcast.
I am going to fast forward on State's Exhibit 15 to 12:34. You see that in the right-hand corner. And do you see the running trail on State's Exhibit 15 at this point?
Yes.
Is that what you're facing?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
All right, so it's more this way. That too close. A little bit further in. More attempt in. So. Oh shit. To the university, I found it. Ma'am, ma'am, ma'am. Oh. I need EMS immediately to the location where the phone pings. Ma'am, ma'am. She's down, she's not breathing. Potentially been attacked. Starting CPR now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. I'm not getting any bolts. She's stiff. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
That's what it sounds like when you're really doing CPR.
12, 13, 14, 15, 16,
Just saying.
17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. That's what you exact. 1, 2, go back 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Take over. Looks like blunt force trauma to the head or shirt has been removed above her breast. Got it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22, 23, 24. Far side, if you look at the ping, we're exactly where that phone was pinging at. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
What was that?
I'm gonna stop it right here at 12:40 for the record, states 15. Let me ask you a few questions, Sergeant Maxwell. First and foremost, we hear a whistle. Is that you whistling?
Yes, ma'am. It's my patrol whistle. We always keep it on our uniforms.
Why are you whistling?
To help other responding units figure out where we're at.
Oh,
You, we heard you describe it, but tell us for the record, when you observed Laken Riley, first of all, how would you describe her clothing?
So it appeared that her clothing, at least her shirt, had been removed to up above her breast. It did not look as if something had like unintentionally happened, as if somebody falls and has a wardrobe malfunction. It looked more intentional, as if somebody had attempted to either remove her top or maybe had used it to drag her.
At some point, did you all have to remove her top?
Yes.
In order to continue CPR?
Yes.
How did y'all do that?
We have, at least some of us carry some shears on us, trauma shears, so we use those to cut off our clothing.
And who is that other officer that we now see in the video with you?
That's Corporal Mason Bridges.
And the two of you are, I see, were working together with CPR?
Yes, ma'am.
And at some point, does EMS arrive?
Yes, it is.
And at some point, do you all have to physically move her body?
Yes, I believe it was before EMS showed up. It was when Athens, Clark County fire showed up, and they suggested that because she was laying in it.
And I could see you and Officer Bridges there. Were either one of you wearing gloves?
You okay? Need a switch? Okay, let me know.
that was the oddest sounding whistle I've ever heard.
And when you first saw her, was she covered by anything, or how would you describe how she was when you first saw her body?
Yes, she was laying slightly on her side, and it appeared that she had some leaves and other vegetation that had been placed on top of her.
Tell them to go to the lake and take a next left. Take a left at the lake and then take another.
Go to the left, take a left, just keep going left. I'm blowing my whistle, so you should be able to hear it.
I'm try to fast forward a little bit.
You're not that. Good.
And that's 1732.
Shears, I'll keep going. You got it? Keep going. Okay.
CPR.
Shears, head trauma. Yeah, looks like right there.
Call for help. Remove pads from package in back of unit. Apply pads to patient's bare chest as shown.
That's an AED.
Apply pads to patient's bare chest as shown. Apply pads to patient's bare chest as shown. Apply pads.
Push it that way a little bit. Pull it that way.
As shown.
Reverse to apply pads now.
Apply pads to patient's bare chest as shown. Interrupted. Do not touch the patient. Analyzing heart rhythm. Do not touch the patient.
Yeah, run south where I ran in. About 45 degree angle to your left. Left, right. All right.
Touch the patient. CPR now.
Hey, I need you to scream for those officers. Hey, you know where we are. Walk over there and get them over here. Okay, you're okay. You're okay.
For 1 minute, 45 seconds.
What do you mean you want to cut her shirt? Go ahead, try to get it off.
That person that you all were just talking to at 1744, 1244, who was that person?
That was one of our interns.
So she is with y'all.
Yeah, she was riding with Corporal Bridges that day.
Continue. Continue for 1 minute, 30 seconds. Continue.
So why is it that you all had to cut the clothes as we just saw, as opposed to just taking the clothes off?
I believe when Sergeant Epps arrived, he attempted to take them off, but they were really tight, bound up, basically, to make it so it was very difficult, as well as some of her extremities were starting to become stiff.
Continue for 1 minute, 15 seconds.
You got the wire. You got the wire. Look at that.
Continue. Continue for 1 minute. Continue.
Is that everything?
Continue for
Sergeant Epps, did you notice anything about Laken Riley's clothes beneath her waist?
Yes, so she had on a pair of like running leggings, and it looked like in the front side, her underwear was bunched up towards the top end.
Was her navel exposed?
Yes.
45
What we
seconds.
got? On. Give those head. Give those head. Give those head. Give those head.
Continue. Continue for 30 seconds.
And can we see that now in the underwear as you described it at 1745 for the record, 1245?
Yes, in this direct frame, I think my cord from my whistle's covering it, but any frame to the side should be able to.
Okay, you see her
Yes.
underwear in that? Please point to it for the court.
Down here, it's kind of peachish or tan in color.
Sticking out of the pants in the middle of the frame? Yes? Is it in the middle of the frame
Oh,
for the
yes,
record?
yes.
Thank you. And that's at 1745 for the record.
Continue. Continue for 60 seconds.
Put down. Put down.
Continue for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Stop CPR. Analyzing interrupted. Do not touch the patient. Analyzing heart rhythm. Do not touch the patient. Analyzing.
I'm going to move a little bit I'm going to fast forward a little bit until you move her. And so for the record, I'm going to go about 3 minutes ahead. And since I am jumping ahead, instead of playing all 3 minutes, could you just tell the court what happens in the 3 minutes before y'all move her?
So we continue to rotate back and forth between AED instructions and giving compressions. During this time, Athens Clark County Fire Department will have shown up as well.
Who is the other officer that has arrived from your police department that we see?
So Sergeant Epps will have been the officer.
So at this point, then it's you, Sergeant Epps, and Officer Bridges.
Yes.
Now, do not touch the patient. Analyzing heart rhythm. Do not touch the patient.
I'm at 1748 for the record.
Analyzing. No shock advised.
It is safe to touch the patient.
Negative.
Begin CPR now.
Sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for a while now.
I think it depends on the person.
16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22.
Some people are probably like
1 minute, 45 seconds.
getting off on reliving it.
Who found it? I did.
Continue.
And others are probably going, man, I shouldn't have done that.
Continue for 1 minute.
At least I hope they are.
3 times and check, no shock advice. Okay, hey, we need to pull her up onto some flat ground. Get better compression.
Continue for 1 minute.
1, 2, 3. Get that. That's okay. We got,
Continue. Continue for 1 minute.
Do we have somebody with crime scene tape? We need to start going around here. Yeah. Go ahead and get a meeting room.
I'm sorry, but she's gone. She's cold and
So now
stiff.
at 1750 or 1250, is that when fire took over CPR?
Yes.
Is this location where you found Laken Riley's body in Athens, Clark County, Georgia?
Yes, it is.
After fire takes over CPR, what do you do?
So at that point, I suspected that this wasn't an accident based on the circumstances in which she had been found. So I started communicating with Sergeant Epps that we need to begin setting up a perimeter to preserve any evidence because I believe the crime had occurred.
What perimeter did y'all set up?
So we set up a pretty wide perimeter from that location outwards. I'm not sure exactly how far it was, but I myself went up to the more northern side of that main trail that I had walked in on, and I stood there until I was relieved.
Yeah, one moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
And I'm gonna just take out states 15 and leave out 9. How long did you stay on the scene that day?
I was there, let's see, in my narrative, I think I had until about 3:20 in the afternoon, and I was relieved by another officer at that perimeter, but I was on scene for at least a couple more hours.
That's all I have, Your Honor. I'll pass it.
No questions. Thank you, Judge.
You want to replay any of this? Okay, I'm gonna, if somebody will let them know if anybody wants to come back in, they can do that. I'll leave that up to them.
You don't have to. Thank you, Judge. And Judge, I'll try to keep this brief. Is it Sergeant Maxwell?
Yes, it is.
Okay. When you arrived on the scene, Miss Riley's pants were on, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. They were pulled up above the waist?
To the west, yes.
Okay. And the only thing that you noticed about her pants was that her underwear was up above her waistline, is that right?
Correct. It was bunched up in the front.
Okay. And that her shirt was pulled up, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And the way that I heard you describe it on direct was that it could have been removed, is that right, by someone?
It appeared to me as if somebody may have attempted to remove it. That's where it had been lifted up.
Or had used it to drag her, is that right?
Potentially.
Okay. Did you notice any blood stains around her ankles?
I did not.
Okay. Did you notice any injuries to her ankles?
I did not.
Okay. Could this shirt have also come up if she were dragged by her feet?
I would have to speculate potentially.
Okay. You don't have any personal knowledge of how the shirt was pulled up, is that right?
No.
Okay. And how far off of the trail would you say she was when you found her?
At least 50 feet.
Okay. And it wasn't obvious when you started looking for her, it wasn't obvious where she was.
No.
Okay. Did you notice anything about the area surrounding her that looked disturbed in any way, or is that just not something that you were necessarily looking for at the time?
Exactly. It wasn't something I was looking for at the time.
Okay. That's all the questions I have, Judge.
Sergeant Maxwell, when you were conducting CPR on Laken Riley, did you actually take the time to study the number of layers of clothing that she had on her top?
I didn't specifically do that, no.
You know how many layers she had on?
I think maybe 3.
And you said her pants were pulled up above the waist. I'm gonna have to ask you, what do you mean by waist?
I guess waistline would be up above more of like the hips, but below the navel.
Okay, so was her navel exposed?
Yes.
Okay. That's all I have, Your Honor. Yes, sir.
Any objection? You're excused.
Thanks, sir.
How long your next witness will take?
She would be like the first two, because it's common.
Okay, they might
So,
get not
20
guilty
minutes.
Let's take.
on aggravated assault with intent
Connolly,
to rape.
Connolly Luke?
Still gonna get murder. He's still gonna get life without parole. And there's Connolly. Oh, she's the one I put the picture of in my episode I did. I knew it was a roommate, but I didn't know which one it was.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm the testimony you will give today in the matter of the state of Georgia versus Jose Ibarra will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Okay, please.
My name is Connolly Hood, CONNOLLYHH.
How old are you?
I'm 22.
What do you do for a living?
I'm currently unemployed. I graduated in May and I'm waiting to go to grad school.
Where are you gonna go to grad school?
Mercer.
What are you gonna study?
I'm gonna get my master's in mental health counseling.
You graduated from where in May?
University of Georgia.
What's your undergrad degree in?
Psychology.
Did you, when you attended the University of Georgia, have roommates?
I did.
Can you tell the court, where did you live?
I lived at 1686 Millage Avenue.
Who lived there with you?
Laken Riley, Sophia Magana, and Lily Steiner.
How long have you known Laken?
Known her for over 2.5 years.
Where did y'all meet?
We met, well, she came over to my house to see the house, so in-house.
Would you and Laken run together?
Yes.
How often?
It depended on her nursing schedule, anywhere from 3 to 6 times a week.
Tell us what kind of runner Laken was.
She was a good runner. She could run for a long time, far distances. She's pretty fast as well.
And would y'all, when you would run together, well, first of all, did you run races together?
Yes.
Approximately how many?
1.
And which one was that?
The ATHAF in 2023.
Is that October 2023?
Yes.
And would you train together for that race?
Yes.
And could you tell us when Laken ran and you ran with her, are you familiar with her running habits?
Yes, I am.
What are her running habits?
She, like clothing wise?
Clothing and what she would do on her runs.
Well, she always had a watch on. It was either an Apple Watch or she recently got a Garmin watch. She had different types of headphones she would wear, but she listened to music while running. Sometimes when she was alone, she would call her mom. And she also had called her mom with me before on runs. She wear tight clothing usually.
And why tight clothing?
It's kind of annoying when you have loose clothing on when you're running and it's flopping around, as well as like compression.
How many times have you seen Laken Riley in running clothes?
Many times.
And of all the times that you've seen her running, does she wear running tights?
Yes,
And how often does she wear running tights?
almost every time.
And running tights, and when I say running tights, can you describe what is meant by running tights?
They're like leggings, so they essentially like stick to your skin.
And when Laken would wear her running tights, were her tights above her belly button, or would she wear them below her belly button?
Always above.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor? I'm handing you two exhibits. One is State's Exhibit 16. I'm going to ask you to recognize the person in State's Exhibit 16.
Yes, I do.
Who is that?
It's Laken.
And does that fairly and accurately depict Laken in life?
Yes.
And does it also show the manner in which she would wear her running tights?
Yes.
They would move to admit State's Exhibit 16. State's Exhibit 17, have you seen 17?
Yes.
And what is State's Exhibit 17?
It's a video that I took of Laken doing jumping jacks.
And does it also depict how she would wear her running tights?
Yes.
And the state would move to admit 17. Let's start with 17 since we've toggled over already. I just published State's Exhibit 17 for the record. Is that the manner in which Laken would wear her running tights above her belly button?
Yes.
Just trying not to cry.
Did you ever see, in the times that you were with Laken, did you ever see her running with her underwear on the outside of her running tights?
No.
Would you toggle over, please, Your Honor? State's Exhibit 16, tell us what that depicts. When was that picture taken?
October of 2023.
Is that your half marathon that y'all
Yes.
ran? Okay, and in that photograph, do you see Laken's tights?
Yes, I do.
And again, can you describe, is her belly button showing or not?
It is not.
Is that consistent with what you would see every time she ran and her belly button was not showing?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
I want to ask you, Ms. Booth, about February 22nd, 2020. Tell us about your morning that day.
I woke up, I had 2 classes that day, so I woke up at 7:45. I quickly got ready and I had class at 9:35 and 11:10 in Caldwell Hall in the same room. As I got ready, I walked out to our living room and kitchen. Laken was sitting there with her iPad and she was taking notes and doing her homework and watching Netflix. And for 45 minutes, we sat and talked about our plans for the weekend and what we were gonna do later that night. And I left for class at around 8:45 to get on the bus.
When you left for class, was Laken still in the house?
Yes.
And at some point when you were in class, did you become concerned about Laken?
Yes.
Tell us why and what happened.
At one point, Lily had sent a text asking if Laken was okay. And I was in class and I just figured she was on the phone with her mom and walking around because that was standard. And I didn't think anything of it. And then at around 11:15, 11:20, I got a call from Lauren, Laken's sister, and I didn't answer because I was in class. And then she called me again and I didn't answer. And I texted her and I said, like, I'm in class, what's up? And she asked me if I'd heard from Laken, and I immediately went into panic. I stepped outside of the class and I called Lauren back and said I'll try to figure out what's going on. So I then called my 2 roommates, and both of their phones went immediately to voicemail. And then I tried calling Laken and her phone rang and then went to voicemail.
Why were you panicked immediately?
Just because she would run for a long time, but I knew she had class that day, and I knew that she wasn't one to be late or off schedule.
All right. So At some point, did you meet up with the University of Georgia police officers?
I did.
When did you do that and where were you?
I had Sophia pick me up from my class around 12:15, 12:20, and she took me straight to the intramural fields to meet with the officer and Lily.
How long did y'all stay there that day?
6 hours, 7 hours,
When was your last communication with Laken Riley?
9 o'clock
At what day?
on February 22nd.
Did you ever hear from her after that?
No, I did not.
May I have one moment, Mary? That's all I have on hospitals.
I'm going to try and keep this short, but let me know if you need a minute. You described Laken Riley as a good runner.
Yes.
How long was a typical run for her?
6 miles,
And how long did that take her?
58 to an hour.
If the two of you were sprinting, do you know what her fastest time could be for a run?
8 minutes.
Besides the clothes and the phone, did she often have anything else with her when she went on runs?
Her earbuds.
Did she ever carry a house key with her?
Yes.
And where was the house key kept?
And sometimes her leggings have pockets. Again, pockets are in her waistband. There's pockets in some Lululemon brand leggings, so in there, or in her jacket pocket.
And I believe you told officers that it was typical for her to wear 3 layers of clothing on a run. Is that right?
Sometimes, yes.
And sometimes when she was getting heated on runs, she would remove the middle layer, the shirt in between the jacket and the bra.
No.
You didn't tell the officers that she would ever remove a layer of clothing?
Between where?
She would sometimes remove her shirt when she got heated on runs.
She would take her shirt off and have her sports bra on, but it was only when I was with her.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions.
Excuse me, did you see the main doorbell footage of February 22nd at 9 a.m., 9:03 a.m. in the house?
Yes.
Are you familiar with the clothing that she was wearing?
Yes.
What was the clothing she was wearing?
She was wearing Lululemon black leggings, a Lululemon zip-up jacket that was black, and her white Hokas.
And Hokas are what?
Tennis shoes.
And that Lululemon black jacket, you've seen Laken wear that one before?
Yes.
And would you describe that as a tight jacket or a loose jacket?
Tight.
And how tight is that jacket?
Very tight.
That's all I have. Yes.
I don't like tight clothes. That's a
This time we'll break for lunch.
fibromyalgia thing.
Recess till 1 o'clock.
Yeah, tight clothes are a no-no when you have fibromyalgia because it's just uncomfortable. Like you feel like you're being squeezed. It's not really painful. I can't even describe what it feels like. So you also can't run when you have fibromyalgia because running is high impact. So after a little while, you start to just feel like you're being jarred constantly. So I never did like to run. I'm okay with walk. Well, not anymore because of my back. But before my back went bad, I used to like to walk. But. Okay, so we will meet back here at 1 because I need to get something to eat. So interesting so far. I've heard a lot of evidence that I didn't know about. I don't know why. I've always thought a bench trial would be harder to get a not guilty verdict. So I don't know why he went this way. And I also don't know why he didn't just plead. I don't know. Okay, I will see you guys in an hour. Thanks for hanging out with me. See you later.